Welcome to Here Comes the Boom, a Kentucky basketball recruiting podcast brought to you by KSR and KSR Plus. You're probably wondering why I have the different setup. My house right now is overrun by mice. I've had a mice infestation at the house, so I'm at my girlfriend's house, filming from here, filming from my computer. So no camera, no mic today. We're just talking about Kentucky basketball recruiting, and it hasn't been the greatest week for Kentucky basketball on the recruiting trail. Three of their top targets have all committed elsewhere. Let's talk about them. First, let's talk about Anthony Thompson. He was a small forward out of Western Reserve Academies, a player that Kentucky really wanted for a long time. They were basically in his recruitment for almost 2 years, hosting him for 3 visits, 2 unofficial. He was there for Kentucky's win over Florida last season, and he was at Big Blue Madness last season. Took his official visit uh, earlier this fall, and towards the end of his recruitment, it was really Indiana versus Ohio State battle, and Ohio State ended up closing on him. Then you had Bryson Howard, the son of Josh Howard, former NBA player. He was down to a final 3 of Kentucky, UNC, and Duke. Kentucky was really pushing hard for his recruitment. This was a player that Kentucky really wanted at the shooting guard position. He's a big wing, and Duke really came down the stretch. There was a lot of UNC buzz early in the recruitment. Then he took that Kentucky visit, and there was some talk that Kentucky could get it done. And then Duke came in at the end and closed the deal. So you had Anthony Thompson, Bryson Howard, and then the misses kept coming this morning when Josh Irving, a 6'11" center out of Pasadena, California, chose Texas A&M over Kentucky and Louisville. Kentucky made a significant push in that recruitment as well, getting him for the last official visit. And they made it into his top 3. He took a bunch of official visits. I know San Diego State, Kansas, USC were some other schools involved there, but it was Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Louisville as the final 3. Kentucky was in that top group, and then Texas A&M wound up getting it done towards the end. So those are 3 big misses for Kentucky, but we'll talk about where they go from there soon. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our good friend Andy Ludicky from myperfectfranchise.net. Andy's a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. If you're wanting to find a way out of corporate America, wanting a side hustle business, or a way to diversify, reach out to Andy, as he's got a ton of knowledge in this world, and best of all, his services are 100% free to you always. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you can text or call Andy at 404-973-9901. So talking about where they could go next, next you have one of the top centers in the country visiting this week for Kentucky versus Purdue. Before we talk about Bob Oladotun, who just visited, I want to talk about these visitors for the Kentucky-Purdue game, one of those being Obinna Akizi Jr. So he's a 2027 center, one of the best players in that 2027 class. I think he's ranked in the top 3 by rivals, and he was the second player that Kentucky offered in the 2027 class, the first being Baba, who we're going to talk about, who's now in the 2026 class. So Akizi was really the first player they offered in the 2027 class, and this will be his first time on campus. He is a reclassification candidate. I've talked to him about reclassifying, and he said that he's probably going to make a decision later on that. He's still figuring out how his development goes and if he'll be college ready. So that's a name to watch. He's a priority target for Kentucky, whether you're talking 26 or 27, and they're getting him on campus this week. He's one of 2 visitors. The other visitor is Lincoln Cosby, who's a power forward out of Montverde Academy. His recruitment's been pretty quiet. Kentucky was one of those first schools to reach out on June 15th. And then he's also, I think he just took a visit to Michigan. So like I said, 2027 recruit, still getting in the gist of this recruitment. But Kentucky's getting him on campus early and doing it at the right time for this Purdue game, which I'm sure everyone wants to be in attendance for. Now let's talk about Baba's visit, because that was last week. He was in town for the blue-white game. He was there the 17th through the 19th, I believe. And I talked to his dad after the visit. He had great things to say about the Kentucky visit. You can go find that story on KSR Plus. Um, he got to see the blue white game, talk to the academic advisors, talk to the strength and conditioning coaches. So that was something that really impressed Baba's father, was the strength and conditioning coaches, not only having the head guy Randy Towner, but also having an assistant there. So talked about them being very knowledgeable and having a lot of resources there. Looking at his recruitment as a whole, the schools that I see as the biggest threats are probably Arkansas, who he's about to visit, and then Virginia Tech, who he visited earlier this fall. He's also taken visits to Maryland and Georgetown. But right now I'm looking at Virginia Tech and Arkansas as the biggest threats to Kentucky in that recruitment. I think that Kentucky's going after a lot of guys in that mold of a bigger small forwards. Tyron Stokes is a player that they're still going after. I still like Kentucky's position in that recruitment, and I don't see Baba and him interfering with each other. If Tyron were to commit, I wouldn't think that would take them out of the Baba sweepstakes and vice versa. So I think that those two would be, at least talking to sources on Baba's side, it doesn't rule them out if they were to land Tyron Stokes. So that one is worth watching as he takes his Arkansas visit coming up. And then my final thought is that recruits are coming off the board fast. Guys are making their decisions. We had 3 big decisions this week. So those decisions are going to keep coming. Kentucky is still heavily in the race for Tyron Stokes. I'd still peg them as the leader right now, and it's hard to see them making too many moves in this class until Tyron makes a decision. So all eyes are going to be on Tyron Stokes, and I still think Kentucky's going to have a good 2026 recruiting class, but a lot of guys coming off the board, and expect more commitments coming in the next few weeks. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to go and subscribe to KSR Plus. Go and subscribe to the KSR YouTube channel, and we'll see you again soon.